All right, so I want to zoom out a little bit for just a minute here. Up to this point, we've talked about adaptation, how your brain's trying to protect you. We've talked about your nervous system, your overthinking, reacting, and shutting down, the different sides of your nervous system, and how parts of that system are being triggered during all of these protective strategies. We've talked about the first and second arrow of suffering and how conscious awareness can interrupt us from shooting that second arrow. We've talked about inner roommates and all the chatter they have and how sometimes they sit with you in the car and hijack your driver's seat. And those all may feel kind of like separate ideas, but they're all going to come together here in this final step of part 2. One of my very favorite quotes comes from the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And that quote is, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." And one of the things I love so much about that quote is that it acknowledges that that first arrow of suffering, that is the stimulus. It's always going to be there. It's always going to happen to us. Life comes with challenges, whether we like that or not. And we usually don't, but it does. When that stimulus hits, there is a response that we're going to exhibit. And whatever that response is, will be determined by the quality of your conscious awareness. That moment that you attend to that stimulus and you notice how it's impacting you, what it's causing, how you might be activated into dysregulation, whether it's fight, flight, mobilization, or freeze, collapse, shut down, immobilization. That space where we attend to ourselves with conscious awareness is where everything begins to change. The space is not a literal place. It's not an actual space. It's a moment. Even if it's only a half a second, it's a moment where we take a breath, which we're going to talk a lot more about later on when we get to our nervous system regulation strategies. It's that moment where we notice, oh, I'm activated. Ooh, I have this happen to me all day where I used to just be like stimulus response, something happened to me, I would react to it. Now, stimulus, pause, become aware. What's going on? Whoa, I feel it in here. Oh, I see you, anxiety. I know, you didn't like that. You're scared. I see you, inner critic. Oh, You're judging everything I do before I even get it done. I know you're afraid. It's okay. I'm going to do this anyway. Or maybe I don't need to do that. We get to decide once we have that moment, that space where conscious awareness comes in. That tiny moment can change completely how we experience what's happening to us, and it can completely change what's possible next. So here's where all of my fun metaphors, they start to overlap. I love my metaphors. So the first arrow hits, the space appears. Do I shoot the second arrow or not? Your inner roommate grabs the steering wheel and you get to decide, in that space, do I hand it over? Or do I take it back? Your nervous system gets activated. The space appears. Conscious awareness comes in and says, I notice what's happening. I am not what's happening. I am noticing what's happening. Anxious thoughts come in. Overthinking starts. And that space appears and says, do I follow my thoughts out into all these rabbit trails of chaos and confusion and predicting horrific things? Or do I calm my body down and get curious? That space is what ushers in options, choice, freedom. Having this conscious awareness doesn't mean that things aren't going to go wrong. It doesn't mean that suddenly your problems are going to disappear or that someday will come that you're never activated into dysregulation. You're still going to get triggered and scared and overwhelmed and have a tendency to overthink. And the goal is to never react or to not have these feelings. The goal is to expand the space in between stimulus and response. At first, that space is going to show up afterwards. As you're practicing this, sometimes you'll do better at it than other times. Sometimes you're going to react unconsciously. Sometimes fear took the wheel. You didn't even have time to think about it. And it's not until later that that conscious awareness comes in and says, that's not really how you wanted to handle that, is it? And in that moment, you're going to be compelled into feeling guilt, regret, shame, cringe. No, not cringe. Everyone hates that. And it's okay if it happens later, and it's okay if those feelings come in. You learn to sit with those feelings. You learn to put them in the passenger seat and say, guilt, cringe, embarrassment, shame, I see you. I'm going to do nothing about you for the time being. I'm going to wait until you're back in the passenger seat and I'm at the wheel. And then I evaluate what needs to happen next. This kind of changes the whole process when you don't think that we're practicing in order to be perfect in some future that never arrives, or to never get activated or upset. It's not going to happen. We're just practicing noticing, returning, and choosing. Notice, return, choose. And we're doing that over and over and over again. And every time we do that, it widens this space, it strengthens our capacity, and it's a lot like widening what we talked about earlier, that window of tolerance. When our window of tolerance is nice and wide, we can handle quite a lot of stress. When we increase our capacity, sometimes that window can get smaller if we're hungry or tired or upset already. That window can get smaller based on any of those things. Strengthening the space between stimulus and response is a lot like widening our window. We have greater capacity to handle what's in front of us because we're acting in clarity. So at first, this pause and this slowing down of your reactions feels kind of weird. You might even feel like you're in danger because you're not doing the things that you've always done. But the more you practice it, the more like home it's going to start to feel. And the more your body feels like home. And you don't feel such a need to get away from yourself all the time, to maybe use substances that quiet all of these voices, or go off onto your phone and doom scroll for hours at a time because you're trying to avoid what's going on inside of you. The space creates peace, it creates capacity, and it creates the ability for you to act more skillfully and be the leader of this dumpster fire that we call a body, which is a beautiful, amazing, adaptive thing. But let's be honest, sometimes it feels like a dumpster fire. So this is what we mean when we talk about becoming rooted. Connecting to this conscious presence, this conscious awareness that helps us navigate what we're going through. This is what it looks like to become rooted. It's not never getting pulled away from yourself or having these big emotions that are really difficult. Instead, it's becoming someone who naturally returns to this more regulated state where you can handle what life's throwing at you with greater capacity. And this is where true freedom begins. If you remember one thing from today's step, it's that there's a space between what happens and what you do next. And it may be tiny today. Maybe you've never even experienced it before. It grows with practice. And inside that space, that is where conscious awareness lives. It's where you can access self-compassion, greater discernment and understanding and clarity of what's going on in your life. It invites intentional choice. And every lesson from here forward is really about helping you strengthen that space. This is where a rooted life is actually built.